Morning, everybody. Morning, Zoom. Get started here in just 1 minute. What I'll have to do. There you are. All right, as I believe you guys can see, go ahead and get to Canvas for our current lesson. Change my name from Daniel Brunette. I mean, it's one of those things, especially starting off with getting in a hole. It's tough to get back. Luckily, at least with this class, up until now, you've been able to turn stuff in 100%. That's always good. All right. Doing fancy new stuff here. So let me make sure that this is going to work. Let's see, guys. Starting off with some announcements from last week. If you have not taken that quiz on Friday, I know this class, so you guys are right. So we had a little technical issue, a little snafu there on Friday with a certain teacher who will remain nameless because he's not in the room, closing his laptop and then everybody kind of losing connection. So little haziness on what the next step was. So I saw a few people hadn't taken the quiz up until yesterday. You might have done it since I looked, but make sure to take this quiz week 7-8 quiz from Friday. Other than that, there was some confusion on number 17. It was that socialism question that was worded very weird on my part. So we are gonna, if you missed that on that quiz, I already added the 2 points on, but I'm gonna give you the credit for it since it was worded differently than the Kahoot and actually worded incorrectly in general. So if you were one of the students that messaged me about that or wondering about that, that's what's going on with that question. So if you got like a 25 on the quiz when you took it, it's a 27 now or whatever the numbers might be. So that's going to help out a lot of you because for good reason a lot of you missed it. Yesterday's assignment, asynchronous assignment, probably about, I don't know percentage wise, but not everybody did it. So make sure to get that done as well. It's just a Mankind video with some questions attached. And then having you choose 2 assignments for full credit. I think we've gone over this in every class, but if we haven't, I've locked every assignment, maybe besides a couple quizzes that are going to be locked on Friday or Thursday, excuse me. So any 2 assignments that you want to choose from January or February, it doesn't have to be like one from each month. If you're missing like 2 from February that you'd like to make up or vice versa. But any 2 assignments you want to do for full credit, let me know in that and then answer the video questions. So pretty straightforward. And then, yeah, I just said this, locked after 5 days, late penalty after that. It'll depend on what the project is or what the assignment is in terms of the late penalty. So last week, just to get our bearings a little bit, Monday we did for the asynchronous, just like perform step 1 for the current event projects. A lot of you did that. A lot of you did really nice work with it. Tuesday we explained the causes of the Industrial Revolution, which was actually just the week 8 intros. Moved on Wednesday to that crash course video. And then Thursday, examine social causes or changes caused by the Industrial Revolution. That is that 3-2-1 discussion post on Canvas. If you recall, you picked one of 3 different articles. Very easy. I think it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This might be the last day. I'm bad at math. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. This might be the last day before it gets locked. So if you guys want full credit for that, I would definitely do it today. I know a lot of your one thing you enjoyed about that discussion post, the one on the 3-2-1, you said how easy it was. So that's cool. I'm good with being easy, but I would get that done today before it gets locked. And then Friday, we did a couple current events and a couple different classes. This one I messed up on. Sorry about that. You good with going Friday? Okay. Yeah, Mariah was supposed to go Friday, and I misread the calendar. So then we did a giant review game with a quiz, which literally almost everyone did well on. Yeah, Francesca, that's a good question. A lot of people were wondering yesterday what to do about, hey, I didn't have any missing assignments. If you don't have missing assignments, good job. Don't worry about it. That was more for your classmates that might have a few missing ones that they would like to make up. But I did see a few different people ask me that question yesterday. Okay, so today's warm up, Zoom. This is of course, yeah. Zoom, or what was I about to say here? Tuesday morning, man, it's tough. Warm up question, yeah. Zoom, and actually, everybody, this is how you're gonna get your participation. So I'm gonna put you on mute for about a minute or two. Answer this question: do you take notes for any of your classes? Like if your teacher doesn't make you? If yes, do you think it helps? If no, why not? Put you on mute. I'll be back with you in 1 minute, guys. See what we got here. We got a couple yeses. Sometimes I'm just lazy, and oh man, everything came in at once. And other times it helps. Yeah, Ethan, it sounds like me and you would have got along in high school. We talked in here about it. It depends on what class for me in high school. Um, some classes were easier for me to remember. Some classes were like math or science. Had to work a little bit harder. So those were the ones that I would actually take notes in, and it would actually help eventually when I would do it correctly. But it's tough to do. We just mentioned in here, but a lot of, especially with virtual learning, you guys have a lot of different stuff on your plate. So any specific way to take notes, or organized way is a better way to say it, is really going to help you out, especially with all these different subjects, especially with virtual learning. You guys have a lot going on, and it'd be tough for me to keep on top of it. That's for sure. All right, so does note taking really help? This is according to Professor Walter Pock, I believe is his name, from Cornell. He came up with this Cornell note taking that we're going to do today. You're not going to do the full thing. We're kind of going to do it as a class, but actually, Chris, this is kind of what you were going into what you were saying, where the human brain is not great at listening and recalling information, especially later on down the line. If you look at this, after 20 minutes, 47% gets forgotten. After 78 days, which was way down their way, the vast majority of things get forgotten. Despite this stuff, only 66% of students, which actually somewhat matches up with what a lot of you were saying in here, take notes. Even though obviously we all kind of know, I think, that it's good, you're going to do better when you take notes versus when you're not. But one of the big debates with note taking in general is writing versus typing. I've always been a typer. I've always had a laptop, luckily, in college and in my professional life. So with typing, you can obviously get way more words taken care of, 310 compared to 173. But statistically, when they've studied it, the performance of people who write their notes, they do tend to do much better than typing. You pretty much just have to weigh it out, though. If it's a whole bunch of information all at once, you probably do better at typing because you can do it quicker, especially if you're going to review it. There's something about that like writing down process that's good for our brains. All right, so today we are going to be doing Cornell note taking, as I just mentioned. A show of hands in class. Who's heard of Cornell note taking? Have you guys done it before? Yeah. When have you guys done it? Like did they? You said no. When have you done it, Mariah? Okay, they were trying to teach you how to do it. Nice. Yeah. So, three-step process: 1, 2 main idea and questions, and then 3 summary. This one you're going to do during the lecture: keywords, ideas, important dates, people, that type of stuff. If you're doing like a math class, it's going to look different depending on what class, but formulas, diagrams, pictures, anything that while you're going, it's going to help you. These are main ideas, and these are key questions. So here's the thing about note taking that I didn't realize until college, until they start making you do a lot of papers. But in your head, you think it's going to be way more work. In reality, it's a great way to be kind of lazy when you're writing a paper. Because if you do this stuff during the lecture, you take the notes and then right after or that night, write down the main ideas of it. You can take all this stuff on this left-hand column, combine it into a summary, and you can get away with copying and pasting most of what you're writing and just combining it all together for a complete paper. So it is more work at the moment, but especially later on, whether you're watching a video, whether it's a lecture, whether you're reading like a Wikipedia article, just to research, this stuff is going to help you out a whole bunch. The quicker you do it, the better it's going to be for you. So most of you guys should be, as that first page, the morning agenda page said, have the Canvas instructions up. So we're about to get started with that. But today's learning objective is examine the political and economic changes caused by the Industrial Revolution and their impact on the development of political and economic theories. Lots of words. But what that means is we're going to be learning about touching on capitalism, socialism, communism. We're going to start to see what those things are in practicality, why they started to become theories during this time period, and somewhat who came up with those things, especially with communism. But regardless, we are gonna start getting at that. I should have loaded this already. But if you haven't already, download that note sheet off of.
So these notes today are going to cover the economic and political changes.
If you have not already, go ahead and download that document. It is going to look like this. Name, date. I already put the topic in for you right here. So here's the thing with this paper. Obviously, a normal Cornell note sheet is not going to have all this information already in it. What I want to do is try and guide you guys through this, and it's essentially a worksheet at this point. Anything in bold today is what we're going to actually fill out. So free market, socialism, means of production, communism. We are going to actually fill these out together. I'm going to show you what I would put down, and then you can copy it down. And then hopefully we have enough time to move on to this second one as well. But this is a teacher from Ohio that is a buddy of, or a friend of mine who did this. I thought it was good, and I also thought it'd be valuable for you guys to see kind of me model this, and you can kind of just copy it down and see what the process would be. So if you don't get everything, do not worry about it. Copy off what I'm going to write down, and we will go from there. Any questions? Does that make sense? Michael, Francesca, you're the only faces I see on Zoom. Does that make sense? Cool. Good. Good.
Of them can be used for both, and I'll go over that a little bit. So our vocab, definitely know what the free market is. We've gone over this before, but it's that unregulated exchange of goods and services. You can buy whatever you want. You can sell whatever you want. If somebody wants to buy what you have, that is your choice. You decide the price. We're going to go over utilitarianism and socialism, but one that you should know, especially for socialism and communism, is going to be the means of production. All the means of production means is how things are produced and shipped in a country. The things that make the things that people need. That's what it means, okay? So businesses that produce and distribute the goods. The proletariat is going to mean the working class, and social democracy is going to be the idea that slowly there will be a gradual transition into socialism instead of a violent overthrow of the system. So here's your objectives, okay?
All right, so means of production, another good way to say that, large businesses. So especially with this category, just put in rough notes. It doesn't have to be the exact thing. If you try and do the exact thing the professor or the teacher rather, or the YouTube video or whatever you're doing says, you're gonna miss it, and you're also not gonna be able to put it in your own words. So farms, factories, railways, and other large businesses that produce and distribute goods, large businesses, and distribution goods. And then communism, everybody's favorite form of government. Form of socialism, saying class struggle is inevitable, will lead to the creation of a classless society. Let's see, what did I originally put here? You can say form of socialism. Lead in classless society. All right, let's move on.
Gradual transition into socialism instead of a violent overthrow of the system. So here's your objectives, okay? Go back if you need to. Adam Smith is in 3.4, and you can learn about him if you forget about free enterprise. So the Industrial Revolution, thinkers begin to question the government's role in society. One of the issues during the Industrial Revolution was there were a lot of problems. You can see that there were major issues with housing. There were major issues with working conditions. This kid doesn't even have shoes. So people begin to say, like, what role should the government play in ensuring that their citizens have a good life? Who owns the resources? These people are extremely poor, but during the Industrial Revolution, we're going to see that there's people who are multi-billionaires. So who should get what? So the first major idea that comes out of the Industrial Revolution is going to be called capitalism, or the free market. We'll refer to it as capitalism. This is the economic system the United States follows. So capitalism can fit kind of an economic and political idea a little bit. It's technically an economic
Chris,
idea,
Francesco, you
but
guys taking notes?
It's confused with politics at times. So they follow this idea called laissez-faire, which means hands off. There's little to no government regulation of the economy. If you want to sell a pet rock and people will buy it, good for you. If you want to sell a dangerous product, you can do that as long as people buy it. The government's not going to tell you what to do. There's just a totally unregulated exchange of goods and services. Remember, laissez-faire means hands off. The government's not dealing with the economy. The idea is that entrepreneurs who make money will then invest their money into other industries, creating more jobs. You can see things like colas come out, advertisements for flowers, the reaping machine that we talked about, and the idea behind it is competition. So if I start my own cola company and mine costs 10 cents and somebody else costs one that's 5 cents, those people are going to go buy the one that is 5 cents. Now I have to drop my price to match their price. So competition caused the price of the goods to come down, so everybody benefits. And then maybe I come out with a better version of cola that I charge 7 cents for. So now we have another product to choose from. Capitalism is going to
Supported by entrepreneurs.
be supported mostly by the middle class and the entrepreneurs because they're the ones who benefit from it. They're going to be the ones who found and start the businesses. So what they say is the free market, not the government coming in and making all these laws and all these welfare programs, is the solution to the working class's problems. We have 3 classes during the Industrial Revolution. We have the upper class who like owns everything, the middle class who starts businesses and runs them, and then we have the working class who works in the factories. The next idea is going to be the utilitarians. So their central idea is that the government should have a little bit of intervention in the economy, and that's called limited government. They want the government to come in and make sure that everybody is essentially taken care of. So they're going to want things like government-sponsored orphanages, food pantries. They're going to want safety laws in the factories. So they say that this working class, these people who work in the factories and have a really bad life, they should be able to be protected by the government and kind of taken care of. Now, the one that I really want you to pay attention to is socialism. So socialism and capitalism do not like each other. They are opposite systems and they will always fight. So in socialism, the government regulates the economy. There's lots of laws on the economy, so the government can make sure that everybody is getting like a fair deal. The main goal of socialism is to protect workers from being exploited and taken advantage of. If you look at the cartoon over here, like the factory owner here, or the factory owner, is squeezing the people with low wages and high rent. Like he's taking everything he can from his workers. Resources under socialism are publicly owned. So things like oil, water, food, they're going to be owned by the people because they say everybody needs them. And that brings us to that idea of the means of production. So remember back to the vocab that the means of production are the things that produce the things that we need in society. The people are going to own the means of production. So an individual person will not own a factory. It'll be the government, and the government will help make sure everybody gets the amount of things they need. Socialist ideas, the goal is human progress. They want a more fair society. And that is eventually going to morph into communism. So socialism and communism are related, but they aren't the same thing. So think about it like this. Every communist is a socialist, but every socialist isn't a communist. So Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels developed the idea of communism in the 1840s. And what they say is there's going to be a classless society. So I talked about those three classes: the upper class who own the factories, the middle class who run the factories and start businesses, and the working class who work in the factories. They say that what's going to happen is communism is going to be where the government takes control of all the means of production, and there will be no classes anymore. Everybody will be 100% equal. So they have this idea of history is a struggle between the haves and the have-nots. The haves are the bourgeoisie. So they lump like the middle class and the upper class into this class called the bourgeoisie, and they own the means of production. They own the things that make clothing, the farms that produce the food, the factories that produce gasoline and cars. And the have-nots are the proletariat. They're the working class, the people who actually make the stuff. And the communists say that eventually the proletariat is going to rise up, overthrow and kill the bourgeoisie, and they're going to create a classless society by taking away the means of production from the bourgeoisie. So you can see in this advertisement here, the communists think that the bourgeoisie, this guy in the fancy coat, they're like beating down the proletariat. They're trying to take everything from them and keep control of the means of production. And eventually this guy, the proletariat, will rise up, overthrow and kill the bourgeoisie, and make a classless society. So,
all right. So before moving on here, so look at what we've done. Obviously, a lot of these were filled in, but this is all everything that he's just covered, all the main ideas, all the things that he's gone over. So after this, you can transfer this information and put it into a little bit of chunks, whatever you think the main ideas are. Vocab is listed up here as well. Obviously, the vocab's in the top right-hand corner for this one, and he starts off with it. And then questions you might come up with as well. So first off, the main ideas, here's an example of one, top left-hand corner. Economic thought is going to pair up with this right here. But literally all you do, economic thought, thinkers question government's role in society, what caused the Industrial Revolution, and who should own the resources. So that is that whole slides, his 1 or 2 minutes of talking about it into one succinct idea. This is how teachers make questions for quizzes and tests. This is how they come up with what they come up with of the main ideas themselves. So right there is a nice little digestible chunk of what you should remember, and you will remember probably if you write it down or type it out. So capitalism, free market believed in. So over here would be blank, obviously, but if you look down at the capitalism, free market section, capitalism and the free market believed in or believes in. That's cool. Laissez-faire, which obviously you can read over there, little to no government regulation. Unregulated exchange of goods, services, competition, means among businesses, and it's supported by the middle class. Utilitarians, here's another example. Government should have limited role in society's life. Society should be the happiness of all, for the happiness of all mankind. Socialism, so if you look through here, the main ideas, socialism and capitalism is opposite system of capitalism, relies government heavily regulates economy, resources are publicly owned, and the goal is human progress and fair society. Boom. So super easy definition, covers all the main points. Communism, I'll let you guys write that for a second. Typing has a distinct advantage where if you have information or a lot of information, you can make this smaller if you want to fit it in all on one page. Let's see, communism. I wouldn't consider Marx and Engels developing communism in the 1840s as a major point. That's just kind of like a little cherry on top for if you care to remember. But classless society, that's very important, is a classless society where workers own all the means of production. History is a struggle haves, the haves being the bourgeoisie, have nots, proletariat. So we've seen this term before, bourgeoisie. We saw it during the French Revolution, meaning the middle class. Marx uses this as his upper class argument that there's always going to be haves, that there's always going to be an upper class and a powerful people. So he viewed over the time, this is a theory that those things, because over time they've always conflicted, one day the workers, the have-nots, the proletariat would one day battle with the bourgeoisie, and that's what would create this class of society. So communism is a form of socialism. It is just an idea as well as it is a form of government. Back to this, believes history is a struggle between haves and the have-nots, and proletariat would one day overthrow the tough word to spell. All right, so questions. Now, these can be questions that you genuinely have about what's going on here. It might be better for you to summarize the points if you come up with questions for yourself. So a couple examples of this would be, what did economic thinkers question during the Industrial Revolution? That kind of encapsulates what's going on right here. If you write this question, you're going to know what the answer is based on the fact you came up with the question yourself. What is the opposite of socialism? Obviously communism, or excuse me, capitalism. And who are the halves of the communism theory? So what do these look like? These look like quiz and test questions. So it's a great way for you to prepare for quizzes, great way for you to prepare for tests. Just to come up with two more on the spot. Utilitarians, also hate that word spelling it. Believed in little. Actually, how about this? What did utilitarians believe in was government's role in society? And then how about laissez-faire? You're going to see all the time in all kinds of classes, or all kinds of social studies classes rather. Was laissez-faire. All right, so now the third step, which we're not going to do together, is summarizing all this information, putting it all together. Literally all you need to do is take this, maybe delete the colon, take this, delete the colon. If you take all that, maybe not copy and paste it completely, but if you copy and paste it down here and morph the words together, you have a summary. You have a 1-page, 2-page paper, super easy. You did all the work right here. You summarized all this into right here, and then you're essentially copying and pasting this down to the summary. So if you ever have a paper, a summarization paper in any subject, any topic, you can do this. So what we're going to do the rest of the time is, what do I want to do? We are gonna, let's start on this one. And then I might have you guys do this yourselves, the main ideas, questions, vocab, as your exit ticket.
Now we're going to go on to the business side. So that's kind of the theoretical side of socialism and capitalism. We're going to go on to the business and social side of the Industrial Revolution. So some things you should know is for stock, this just means shares in a company. And this is where you buy a little piece of a corporation. We'll go over it more in depth. A corporation is a business owned by many different people, and it's like own person. Again, we'll go over it, and we will go over what a cartel is.
All right, so corporations, business owned, what do you say?
So again, we'll go over it, and we will go over what a cartel is. So the Industrial Revolution sees the rise of big business, and this is the rise of the corporations. Before the Industrial Revolution, most companies were owned by a family. They're relatively small. They operated in a small geographic area. We're going to see during the Industrial Revolution, corporations begin to spread all across the planet, and some of them make more money than small countries. This is because the new industries, steel, oil, railroads, they're super, super expensive, and they require large amounts of capital, money, to create. So the solution is to sell stock. So with stock, you sell a piece of your corporation to someone else. They are now an investor in it. And it allows you to raise a lot of money very quickly because you can sell 100,000 shares of stock at $10 a piece to raise money to build a new railroad. But that makes it so the corporation isn't owned by just one person anymore. It's owned by hundreds of people who just have a little piece of that corporation. It also lessens the risk. It's easier for you to invest $2,000 in a company and hope it succeeds and lose that $2,000 to invest $2 million and lose that whole $2 million because the corporation fell apart. So corporations begin to create some issues. And because most governments at this point follow that laissez-faire idea, hands off, corporations begin to do two things. They begin to create monopolies and cartels. So monopoly is where a single corporation controls an entire industry. So if you look at this picture over here, this is supposed to be Standard Oil, and it shows that Standard Oil is so big it controls all the oil in the United States. It's the only company that you can buy oil from. That's a monopoly. A cartel is where a group of corporations work together to fix prices. So this would be if there were 5 or 6 oil companies that all came together and said, okay, we're all going to charge $60 for a barrel of oil, and that's going to be the price from all of us. They fix the price. They work together to make sure they can get the most out of their product. Monopolies and cartels are not good. It drives up prices because you can only get that product from one area or a group of corporations that all have agreed to work together. So here are some of the advantages of building a corporation. So like I said before, corporations are viewed as like a person. So if the corporation goes out of business, you don't lose your personal fortune, you just lose the corporation. It went out of business, not you. You can again sell stock to raise money quickly. You're able to transfer if you don't want to be in that corporation anymore and get rid of it. And again, it's a limited risk because you're only investing a little bit of your money by buying stock. So these are just some of the titans, the guys who came to control major corporations. Alfred Krupp, he controlled almost all this coal and iron in Germany. John D. Rockefeller, who still ranks as one of the richest men ever, he controlled at one point pretty much all the oil on the planet. And Andrew Carnegie, who started as an immigrant, came to control, I think it was like 98% of the steel production in the United States. So here we have Krupp, Rockefeller, and Carnegie. So these guys bring up the issue of captains of industry and robber barons. So they're very, very wealthy. They have these huge fortunes, and people have two different views on them. One of the views is that they are what's called a captain of industry. This is a good thing. They use their fortune for good. So people say they created jobs, they expanded the economy, they created new products, they invested in new inventions, and they even used their fortune to go build public works. I mean, Carnegie built all these libraries over the country, Rockefeller built schools and donated to hospitals, Vanderbilt built an entire university that he named after himself, but people say they're good for the economy because they created all these things. But then there's the negative aspect, which is that they're called robber barons. They use their fortune for personal gain. They influence politics. They're corrupt. They put other people out of business. Rockefeller, if you started up an oil company, he'd come to you and he'd say, I'm going to buy you out. And if you refused to buy out, he would crash the price of oil, destroy your company, and just put you out of business. Some say they didn't care about their workers. They had these dangerous conditions because they viewed their workers as replaceable. We'll learn about the working conditions that were actually absolutely just terrible and dangerous. So nobody really knows what they were. There's no consensus. It's kind of up to you to make up your mind. Moving away from the rich guys who own the companies, we come to the working class. Remember, the working class are the people who work in the factories, they work in the farms. So workers deal with super low wages, very long hours, unsafe equipment, no job security. You could just be fired at the drop of the hat. And they don't like this, obviously. They don't like getting hurt on the job. So the first thing they do is something called the Mutual Aid Society. Think of this as a like pay it forward kind of thing. You would pay out of your paycheck every week a certain amount of money, and it would go into a bank account. And then if you got sick or you got injured, you could pull some money out to provide for yourself in case you couldn't go back to work or you were fired. Eventually, those morph into labor unions. Please star labor unions. So these are organizations that workers form to begin to fight for better conditions and pay. So all the workers in a steel mill would all come together and they'd form a labor union. And they would go to their boss and say, we want to only work 8 hours a day instead of 14. We want a pay raise by $1 an hour. And we want more safety equipment in the factory. And if the owner didn't agree to that, what they would do is a strike, which is they would just leave the factory and stop work. The idea is you have to have us to work. And if you don't, you're going to lose money. So eventually you'll give in to our demands. We're going to see that the labor unions and the factory owners, they literally have like battles where they shoot at each other and they send in private detectives to try and bust up labor unions. And the labor unions come and try to burn down a factory. And it gets very, very violent because these jobs are extremely dangerous. So I hope that gives a little bit of context to the political and economic changes. Some of these can kind of go with both. Like labor unions can be both political change and economic change. And if you have any questions, just let me know.
All right. So exit ticket today. I want you guys to fill in the rest to summarize what we just went over on these main ideas, questions, all of that. Anything that's in bold, I want you to fill out. And advantages of a corporation, captains of industry, who use their fortunes. That way you guys can remember them in your own terms. Come up with 3 questions. When you're done, save this, upload it onto Canvas, but we're going to use the rest of the time to work on that. Is there any questions on Zoom about what needs done or how to do it? All right, we'll remain on. I'll let you know when the period's done. Let me know if you have any questions, guys. Zoom, are there any terms or definitions that anyone missed? You can send it on chat if so. Yeah, one second.
It was like half and half.
All right, guys, that's class. Submit what you have. If you didn't get done, that's fine. Submit what you have on the on Canvas. Thank you. Have a good day.
I think you have a great rest of your day.